A man is driving his bus through the quiet streets of a city in South Korea. It's late. The passengers are gone. The engine is off. And for the next 3 minutes, he's about to do something that will bring one of the most famous men on the planet to tears. And he has absolutely no idea it's coming. He doesn't know it yet. But by the end of this video, a decision made in an empty parking lot at the end of an exhausting shift is going to be seen, shared, and cried over by someone with over 80 million people watching his every move. If you've ever felt invisible in your job, if you've ever wondered whether the small things you do actually matter to anyone, stay with me, because this story is going to hit you harder than you expect. And if stories like this move you the way they move me, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now, because we're about to go deep into one of the most quietly powerful celebrity moments of the year. Before we get into it, let me ask you something. When was the last time you did something purely because it made you happy? Not for likes, not for money, not because anyone important was watching, and it actually led somewhere. For most of us, the honest answer is never. We do the small, joyful things in private and let them stay private forever. This story is about the rare, almost unbelievable exception to that rule. Let's start with the man at the center of this story. His name is Mickey. To most people who ride his bus, he's just the driver, the guy who says good morning, who waits an extra second for the elderly woman shuffling toward the doors, who keeps the heater running a little warmer in winter. Driving a bus is not a glamorous job. It's long hours, tight schedules, and a body that aches by the end of the shift. You're on your feet, then in a seat, then on your feet again. You memorize the same stops, the same faces, the same traffic patterns, day after day after day. It's a job most people don't think twice about, until the bus doesn't show up, and suddenly it's the only thing anyone can talk about. There's a certain kind of invisibility that comes with jobs like this. Bus drivers, delivery workers, night shift employees, the people who keep entire cities functioning while most of us are asleep or too busy to notice. We ride the bus, we say a quick thank you if we're polite, and then we forget the driver exists the second we step off. It's not cruelty. It's just how modern life works. We're all moving too fast to really see each other. Mickey lived inside that invisibility every single day. And most people in his position would probably just accept it as the deal. You do the job, you go home, you rest, you repeat. But Mickey had something else going on beneath the surface. But Mickey had a second life. A quiet one. After his shift ended, when the bus was empty and parked for the night, he would step outside, pull out his phone, and dance. Not because anyone asked him to. Not because he had dreams of fame. He danced because it made him happy. Because for a few minutes, standing beside an empty bus under streetlights, he wasn't a tired driver anymore. He was just a man moving to music, letting go of the day. He started posting these videos online. Small clips. No production value. No fancy editing. No choreographer standing behind him correcting his form. Just Mickey, his phone propped up somewhere, and whatever song was stuck in his head that week. And 1 week, that song was Killin It Girl. If you don't know it, Killin It Girl is a high-energy track by J-Hope, one of the members of BTS, arguably the biggest boy band in the history of music. It's fast. It's sharp. It's the kind of choreography that professional dancers spend hours perfecting. And Mickey, a bus driver with zero formal dance training, decided he was going to give it his best shot. He filmed himself attempting the chorus. He wasn't perfect. His moves weren't crisp like a trained performer's. But there was something about the way he threw himself into it. Full effort, full heart, not a shred of self-consciousness that made the video different from 1,000 other dance challenge clips online. He posted it, and then he went home. He wasn't expecting anything. This was just one more video in a long line of videos he'd made for himself, for the small circle of people who followed his page. He had no reason to believe this one would be any different. But somewhere out there, algorithms started doing what algorithms do. The clip started moving. A share here, a comment there. Someone tagged a friend. Someone reposted it with a caption like, "This bus driver is not playing around." Slowly, quietly, the video started to travel outside his small corner of the internet. And then it reached someone nobody expected. J-Hope, the actual artist behind the song Mickey was dancing to, saw the video. Now, if you know anything about the scale of BTS, you know this is not a small thing. These are artists whose every move is tracked by millions of fans in real time. They release a single Instagram story, and it becomes global news within the hour. For an artist of that magnitude to see a random video from a bus driver in Korea, out of the literal millions of videos posted every single day, is already close to a miracle. But it didn't stop there. Jimin saw it too. For those unfamiliar, Jimin is one of the most recognized performers in the world, a member of BTS renowned specifically for his dancing, his stage presence, and according to countless profiles and industry write-ups, his warmth toward fans and everyday people who cross his path online. This is a man whose schedule is planned out months, sometimes years, in advance. Sold-out stadiums across multiple continents, award shows, album releases, a level of scrutiny so intense that even the way he ties his shoes can become a headline somewhere in the world by the next morning. When you are that famous, your window of free attention is almost non-existent. Every scroll through social media is filtered through managers, filtered through algorithms designed to show you what's trending, filtered through the sheer overwhelming volume of content aimed directly at you every single day. For someone at that level to organically come across a video from a bus driver with a modest following, in the middle of everything else demanding his attention, is already statistically close to impossible. And when Jimin saw Mickey's video, he didn't just watch it and scroll past. He shared it. Both Jimin and J-Hope posted Mickey's dance video to their own Instagram stories, platforms seen by tens of millions of people within minutes of being posted. J-Hope reacted with laughing emojis, clearly delighted by the sincerity of the tribute to his own song. And in that instant, everything about Mickey's quiet little hobby changed forever. Picture this for a second. You're a bus driver. You've worked a full shift. Your feet hurt. You go home, you check your phone out of habit, and suddenly your notifications are exploding. Not from your usual small circle of followers, from strangers. Thousands of them, all saying some version of the same thing. Did you see who shared your video? Mickey didn't believe it at first. Who would? He opened Jimin's Instagram story and saw his own face, his own dance, his own empty parking lot, shared to the story of one of the most famous entertainers alive. According to Mickey's own account of that night, he sat there in disbelief. And then he says, he cried, not out of sadness, out of something much harder to put into words, that specific, overwhelming feeling of being seen. Truly seen, not as a bus driver, not as background noise in someone else's busy life, but as a person whose small act of joy had reached across an entire industry, an entire fame gap, an entire world of difference, and landed, somehow, in front of the very people who inspired it. He described feeling, for one single day, like he wasn't dancing at a bus stop anymore. He was dancing on a world stage. Stop and think about how rare that is. We live in a world where celebrities are surrounded by layers of managers, publicists, and algorithms curating what they see. For a global superstar to personally notice and personally amplify the video of an ordinary working man with no fame, no platform, and no industry connections is the kind of thing that almost never happens. And yet it did. If this story is giving you chills the way it gave me chills researching it, make sure you're subscribed, because we're about to get to the part that made this entire story go from sweet to genuinely unforgettable. Mickey didn't just receive the moment quietly. He responded to it, publicly and from the heart. He posted a message directly to Jimin. And what he wrote wasn't your typical fan gratitude post. It wasn't, OMG thank you so much, with a string of emojis. It was raw. It was specific. It read almost like a letter to someone he never expected would ever read his words. He explained that Jimin hadn't just shared a video. He had shared something closer to his story, his dream, the quiet identity he carried underneath the uniform of his job. He described himself not as someone who performs on stages, but as a bus driver who moves through the same routine, the same darkness of early mornings and late nights, day after day. He said that dancing was never about performing for a crowd. It was about giving strangers on the street a small moment of joy, a flicker of a smile as they passed by. And then he said something that, honestly, is one of the most powerful lines I've come across in a story like this, that one single gesture from Jimin changed everything. That the world was looking at him now. Not because he changed who he was, but because someone with an enormous platform chose to be the first person to actually see him. Read that again. The first person to see him. How many of us go through entire weeks, entire years, feeling like the effort we put in disappears into the void. Like nobody notices the extra mile we go, the small kindnesses we hand out to strangers, the parts of ourselves we pour into things nobody's watching. Miki put that feeling into words in the most honest way possible. And it resonated hard. Think about your own life for a second. Maybe you're the person who always remembers a coworker's birthday when nobody else does. Maybe you're the one who stays 5 minutes late to help a customer even though you're clocked out. Maybe you're the parent who does 100 invisible things every single day that nobody ever thanks you for. We all have a version of Miki's late-night dancing, some quiet, unrewarded act of care that we do simply because it's who we are. And most of the time, that act disappears into the noise of a world without a trace. That's exactly why the story struck such a nerve. It wasn't really about K-pop fandom at all, even though that's the world it happened in. It was about the universal ache of wanting to matter and the rare, electric feeling of finding out that you actually do. Quick pause. If you're the kind of person who appreciates a story like this, one that actually makes you feel something instead of just scrolling past, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who need to hear it. And trust me, we're not even at the most emotional part yet. The story spread across entertainment outlets. Fan pages translated his message into a dozen languages. People who had never listened to a single BTS song found themselves emotionally invested in the story of a Korean bus driver and the global superstar who noticed him. And here's the part that makes this story different from 1,000 other celebrity notices fan clips you've probably seen online. It didn't end there. This wasn't a one-time viral flash that faded into the algorithm within a week. Months later, Miki posted another dance video. And once again, Jimin noticed. Once again, he left a comment, engaging with Miki's content not as a publicity stunt, not as a one-off gesture for the cameras, but as something that looked a lot more like genuine, ongoing attention. Miki responded again, and this time his message went even deeper. He thanked Jimin for once again showing warm interest in his work, following up from the very first Killin It Girl video that had started it all. He said he still couldn't quite believe he kept receiving this kind of support, that he was, in his own words, just an ordinary man serving people through his job, never imagining that someone of Jimin's stature would keep coming back. And then, in a moment that reveals just how deeply this connection had grown, Miki turned the conversation around. He didn't just thank Jimin, he expressed concern for him. He mentioned hearing that another member of BTS had been dealing with a leg injury while preparing for a new performance, and he said he sincerely hoped that member would recover fully and not push himself too hard. He extended well wishes to the entire group, hoping they would all stay healthy through their demanding schedule of performances. Think about the emotional arc of that. A relationship that began with a superstar noticing a stranger's dance video had evolved, over months, into something that looked less like fan interaction and more like mutual, human concern. Miki wasn't just grateful anymore, he was worried about Jimin's well-being the way you'd worry about someone you'd actually come to care about. If you're watching this from the United States, and you're not deeply familiar with K-pop culture, you might be wondering why this particular story got so much traction compared to the hundreds of celebrity notices fan clips that flood social media every single week. Here's the difference. Most of those moments are exactly that, a moment. A quick like, a fleeting comment, gone within 24 hours, never to be mentioned again. They're nice, but they're forgettable because they don't ask anything of a celebrity beyond a single tap of a screen. What happened between Jimin and Miki was different because it kept happening. It wasn't a single transaction. It was a pattern. And patterns are what separate a random act of kindness from an actual relationship, however small or distant that relationship might be. Think about the biggest American celebrity fan moments you can remember. A star pulling someone up on stage, a musician paying off someone's college tuition, a famous athlete showing up unannounced at a fan's hospital room. The ones that stick with us, the ones that actually go down in pop culture history, are almost never the one-off gestures. They're the ones where the celebrity comes back, where they remember, where the story has a second chapter nobody was expecting. This is the piece of the story that I think gets missed in the fast-scroll world of viral clips. It's easy to see a headline like K-pop star shares fans video and assume it's a nice, forgettable little PR moment. But when you follow the full timeline, the tears, the letter, the months passing, the second comment, the second reply, the mutual well wishes, you start to see something much bigger. You start to see what it actually looks like when someone at the absolute peak of global fame chooses, again and again, to spend a few seconds of his limited time making an ordinary person feel like they matter. And that's really what the story is about, isn't it? It's not really about K-pop. It's not really about BTS, or Instagram stories, or viral dance challenges. It's about the universal, deeply human need to be seen. To have someone, anyone, notice the effort you put into the world, even when nobody asked you to put in that effort in the first place. Mickey didn't dance because he wanted to be famous. He danced because it made him feel alive after a long shift behind the wheel. And the fact that his joy reached the very artist whose song inspired it, not once but multiple times over the course of months, tells you something important about the kind of person on the receiving end of that joy. It tells you that fame, at its best, doesn't have to build walls between people. Sometimes, in rare and beautiful moments, it can actually tear them down. And here's something worth sitting with for a moment. Stories like this one don't happen in a vacuum. The reason so many people immediately believed Mickey's account, the reason it spread as fast and as far as it did, is that it fit a pattern people already associated with Jimin and with BTS as a group. Over the years, there have been countless smaller stories, fans meeting members backstage and being struck by how normal, how down-to-earth the interaction felt. Local business owners near tour stops sharing stories of quiet generosity, members going out of their way during meet and greets to remember small details fans mentioned only once. None of those moments individually would make headlines on their own. But together, they build a reputation. And reputations, once built, are exactly why a random bus driver's video could travel as far as it did, because when Jimin shared it, people didn't need convincing that it was genuine. It matched everything they already believed about him. That's really the engine behind why this story became more than a 48-hour trend. It wasn't manufactured. Nobody's publicist planned this. There was no marketing team behind a bus driver dancing alone at night in an empty parking lot. It was simply two very different lives. One lived under the brightest spotlight in the music industry. One lived almost entirely in the dark, quiet hours most of the world sleeps through, intersecting for a few seconds, purely by chance, and neither person walking away from that intersection unchanged. There's a reason this story kept spreading long after the algorithm should have buried it. It's because deep down, all of us are a little bit like Mickey. We all have our version of dancing beside an empty bus at the end of a long day, some quiet thing we do that nobody's watching, some small act of joy we create just for ourselves. And all of us, if we're honest, wonder sometimes whether any of it means anything to anyone beyond us. Mickey's story is proof that it can. That the smallest, most unglamorous acts, a dance in a parking lot, a moment of joy squeezed out of an exhausting day, can travel further than we ever imagine. That somewhere out there, someone might actually be watching, and they might actually care. So here's what I want you to take away from this. If you've got something you do quietly, something that brings you joy even when no one's watching, don't stop doing it. You never know who might be paying more attention than you think. Maybe nobody with 80 million followers is ever going to see the thing you do in your own quiet hours. Statistically, that's the honest truth for almost all of us, and this story is remarkable precisely because it's so rare. But that's not really the point, is it? Mickey wasn't dancing because he thought Jimin might see him one day. He was dancing because it made an exhausting job feel a little lighter, because it gave passersby a reason to smile, because some part of him needed that release at the end of a long shift, whether anyone was watching or not. The recognition that followed wasn't the reason for the joy. It was proof that the joy mattered beyond just him. And that's true whether or not the world ever finds out about it. There's also something worth remembering about Jimin's side of the story. He didn't have to do any of it. Nobody was going to notice if he scrolled past that video like millions of other people did. Nobody would have blamed him for not having the time, the attention, or the energy to engage with a stranger's dance clip in the middle of an already overwhelming schedule. He chose to anyway. And then, months later, when most public figures would have long since moved on to the next trend, the next headline, the next thing demanding their attention, he chose to notice Mickey again. That second moment is arguably more telling than the first, because the first could be explained away as an accident of the algorithm. The second cannot. The second is a choice, made on purpose, by someone with every reason not to bother. If this story moved you even half as much as it moved me putting it together, let me know in the comments. I want to hear which part hit you the hardest. Was it the tears? The letter? The fact that Jimin came back a second time, months later, and Mickey responded by worrying about someone else's health instead of just thanking him again? And if you want more stories like this, real moments of unexpected kindness from some of the biggest names in music, moments that remind you fame doesn't have to erase humanity, make sure you're subscribed and you've got that notification bell turned on, because there are more stories exactly like this one coming, and you will not want to miss them. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I'll see you in the next one.